nested down project. So say inside our say inside our home component, sorry, not home component, inside our uh, employee component. Uh, so here, say, suppose we have we want to show multiple tabs. For example, inside this we want to have multiple tabs, and instead of doing it inside the same component, we want to create, say, 5 different components for 5 tabs. So how do you route? You'll have tab buttons. So in order to display the content of that nested component tab, we can do it using routing. So what we will do is the same concept of basic routing. What we'll do is, so inside our home component, we have this router outlet. So we'll have another router outlet inside our employee component here. So this is where I want to show my child component. And what will happen now is that I'll have other components. So inside route, inside route, inside employees, I believe we added in employees. So inside employee, there is one more parameter known as children, and children expects array. And here you will put the same thing as it is. So say I have another components. That's what we do with child component. You can see we have another parameter, another option here as children, and the components that will show here will be rendered now inside the router outlet of employee component.
Yeah, I have another follow-up question. Like once you do that, do you remove that child route from the main routes, or you have to leave the main routes as well?
For this, no. But if you're doing lazy loading, then you have to remove it from your main module, app module.
Uh,
But for child route, you don't need. You can leave it here because it's nested. It's not
No,
inside
no.
your main.
If you go back to app routing, so on line number 16, you have add employee route also, right? So technically, it is mentioned twice.
I didn't create a nested component, right? So here it will be something say tab one, and here it will be a tab one. I didn't created it. I just
Okay.
to
Okay.
give you a reference, I just copied it.
But you typically you would not duplicate
Duplicate,
that.
yeah, no,
Okay.
no.
Okay.
There is no point in duplicating, but there may be scenarios where you want to duplicate. Say you have something, say for example, in our scenario,
So when you do this, does it mean like you can only navigate to add employee from employee component only alone, and you
yeah,
some other.
yes, technically in this case, add, so here suppose I have tab one. So right now you can only navigate to tab one inside employee component,
Component.
but
Okay.
yeah, but say you have the same functionality that when an admin comes, he don't have to go into a nested inside a component. He can view it directly from a link. So in that case you can duplicate it, and there will be no
Okay.
conflicts or anything unless there is some data being passed in and out of from the nested component.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, Salim, I have a question. We touched observables, but did we touch promises? I didn't recollect it. We touched promises. Just can you give overview of promises?
So yeah, so Angular, by default, we don't work with promises in Angular. The only reason when I needed to work with promises was when I used the third-party library of uh, Firebase, because Firebase, uh, I think the latest version, it gives us observable, but the older version that I was using in Firebase didn't use uh, observable, it uses promises. So promises, what library do you use, JavaScript library, to do REST call in your current Java application, if I may ask?
Sorry, which?
Sorry, what's the question?
Which JavaScript library, REST API libraries you use to call APIs
Yeah,
or something?
currently, our application, sorry, do not make REST calls, and
Mhm.
the JavaScript kind of JavaScript we have is a very raw JavaScript, and sometimes like teams may have used jQuery a little bit.
Yeah,
Okay,
simple.
so
Yeah, also on my.
yes, so jQuery have something called Ajax, right? jQuery Ajax.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So yeah, so promise is similar to jQuery Ajax. In promises, we make API calls, and then there are two functions that the way we handle. So if you remember in RxJS observable, we had the next, catch, and complete. Uh, in promise, we have then and catch. So here we had to use promise because the odd service was calling Firebase. So Firebase is what they are returning promises. And promises is quite simple. You call your REST API in similar manner, and then to handle the callback from your APIs, you use the then function, and then you use catch if there are any exceptions. So similar to promise that I used before I moved to RxJS was Axios API. So these are similar kind of libraries to make XML HTTP request. They are almost identical to jQuery, Ajax, and all, with just some functions which makes it easier to use. So yeah, Axios also support promise. So does that make like answer your questions? Because we don't use promise oftenly, and using promise is not that hard. You just need to call
Yeah.
your API and then use then and catch the exception. That's it.
Okay, yeah. And
Yeah.
in the observable, we need to subscribe, and whenever it is required, we will call and do, right.
Yeah, because observable, they don't work without subscribing. Unless
Yeah.
and until we subscribe, it won't return the data.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Got it. I think we are using jQuery Ajax in recent project, so yeah, that is kind of a promise. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a question on that observables. When we subscribe, do we need to unsubscribe at the end of?
No, because if your data is complete, the complete function inside RxJS, it takes care of that. But we don't usually unsubscribe
Okay.
unless we are using something like mouse. Because RxJS, it comes from the origin of RxJS was working with desktop application. .NET brought it up. So Microsoft gave RxJS. So before it was RX.NET, and after they make it open source, the community picked up and made RX JS. So if you're using with something like mouse events, you're making something like games and all, and the mouse event is continuously sending you stream of data. At that time, you may think of like stopping and unsubscribing. But in our case, when we are working with API, we don't unsubscribe.
Okay. Thanks.
I have another question. Like, if you're building an application, the build process is different compared to when you do a build for a reusable component. So, how would you build reusable libraries in Angular?
Mm,
For example,
re
for example, I want to build a library of pipes that are shared across applications. So I want to build a pipes library.
Okay, so you want to build like npm packages.
Yes, yeah.
So npm packages, I didn't build any packages for Angular, so exact steps I won't know, but I have built quite a few packages for .NET NuGet packages. So I think the first thing we'll have to do is uh, I forgot. Mm, we have to create a sandbox for our testing, and then and then in package.json we have to do a npm watch so that our sandbox environment does not have to keep running, and whenever we make change to our module in the library package that we are building, we are able to test it during at that time. And to deploy, I believe we have to follow guidelines of similar to npm, even though we may not make it public. So it will be creating npm packages, because I have created lots of NuGet packages, so the process should be similar. So here it's create and deploy npm packages. So you can follow something like this, and then you deploy it in your internal artifact library instead of making it public. So yeah,
Do you mind copying this link?
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, but we have to be careful with one thing, that is the versioning. So because all Angular packages should follow the semantic versioning. If it's not followed, then we may have issues with
Yeah,
build
we
issues.
generally in Java also we follow the semantic versioning already.
Yeah, so that's it. We can do this npm publish. It's similar to how I build NuGet packages, I can see.
Okay, I can go through it. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Yep.
Salim, apart from this course and all, did you face any issue with cross-browser validations or compatibilities with
Mm,
Angular in your
i-
experience?
in Angular 7, I faced some issues with Internet Explorer, but those were with old, the older internet issues. And I think after Angular 7 they did a fix, because before Angular didn't supported IE by default. So we had to do add some extra libraries and MIME types. uh, but it was like couple of years back. After that, the last project I did, we didn't face any cross-browser issues, because Angular internally it handles most of the compatibility. There is Webpack, I think that takes care of them, and Polyfill and Zone.js. Yeah, this is the library that takes care of, like, will work for all browsers. You can see.
Okay.
Yeah, and they keep this Zone.js library up to date from time to time.
Oh,
Uh,
And
what is
yes,
the John library for?
for cross-browser compatibility.
Okay.
Yeah. So there may be a scenario where you use third-party library and they have some conflict with Zone.js. Uh, but those are third-party libraries, so they can be different for different libraries or scenarios. Some of them they have like if you upgrade to the latest, the patches are there. I think I faced one issue with this Zone.js where while using SignalR, if you know, we have some concept of SignalR for live data streaming. No, it's similar to what WebSockets. While working with WebSockets, actually we were sharing the screen, so that was pretty complex piece of features. We were sharing the browser with so two users can see each other browser, what's happening in the other one's browser. So there we had some conflicts, but we found a patch and then we fixed it. So not major, but for complex features, I faced one issue with zone.js.
Okay, but by default, the no zone.js will be added, right? When we set up an initial project or
Yeah,
explicit. Yeah. Okay.
no. If you go to package.json,
Okay.
you will see the first thing is apart from the internal libraries of Angular, RxJS, that's the observable one, TSLib, that is TypeScript runtime library, and zone.js. So these three will be in the Angular CLI project startup template.
Okay.
I have another question. So if the same application is used in multiple tabs, are there any issues, the users might experience? Or are there
Mm,
no issues if the same application is used in multiple tabs?
so if the user is, you want the user to work on multiple tabs, so each individual tab will act differently. So, and second of all, you have to use local storage to store your token and login information, because they will only be able to log in multiple tab if your token is in local storage.
Yeah, but for example, like if you open, say for example, create add employee in multiple tabs, and you are putting different information in multiple tabs, does it create any problems? That's what my question was.
Like it will not create any problem, because like in what problem, like in what sense do you want, like
Like
jobs?
one tab might be interfering with another tab.
Oh no,
In,
no, there won't be any interference. And moreover, the main concept is with the data, and data is not in your browser anyway, so there won't be any problem.
Salim, suppose they go ahead and save a lot of data in the browser's the local store.
Yeah.
And then if they open up multiple tabs and do multiple things, not just add user. So it's not like two tabs having add employee on both. Let's
Mhm.
say they start to do multiple things in multiple tabs. It can get a little confusing and maybe create some inconsistency, because now tabs are sharing the
Local
local
storage
store.
data.
Isn't that possible? Is that
Yeah,
possible?
if we are storing data in local storage, then yes. But what we should do is we should first of all, we shouldn't store much data in local storage or session storage. But if we want to maintain session anyway, then we have to use session storage. So when we use session storage, one data from one tab won't be accessible in the other tab. So here you can see I have opened two tabs on the same page. I'll simply add here, so it's updated. If I go here, it's not updated here because this
You
hasn't been.
refresh here, what happens?
Huh?
Then it will update.
Yep,
If you
we
refresh.
have to refresh it because it's not making any REST API
Right.
call yet.
Correct. Of course, of
Yeah,
course.
so
so for
that just
example, can you hit add twice here?
Here
No,
at,
but yeah, twice.
yes, I can
Yeah.
9 times.
So can you go back to the previous screen? It doesn't reflect this data, right? Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because
Thank
it hasn't made the API call yet. But
you.
if I change it here, it will come back.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think on my previous uh, session, I said like we have to secure our backend properly. Like if this button, if someone is doing like this, have a throttle control on the backend as well. So someone is not hitting our endpoints like 100 times per 10 seconds or 20 seconds. Those security aspects need to be there in our backends as well.
Okay.
Yeah. But we can make it reactive using subject and behavior subjects. So if we have a service where we say that, okay, if it's updated, just make my one property reactive in my service. So, and that flag, whenever that flag becomes true, implicitly go and call the REST API, then we can make this reactive.
So any more questions related to the sessions that we covered? Okay.
Sorry, Salim. Maybe this is a silly question, but without depending on the APIs, if any smaller business or company want to use internal memory database or something,
Mm-hmm.
uh, can can the Angular support? They don't want to get a new SQL server or something, some other enterprise editions, but
Um,
they want to set up a
Mal-
simple.
Malik, we can use the mark services that are there. Like you're thinking from a database testing perspective, right?
No, 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 not testing perspective.
Oh,
I'm not thinking about our working environment. Just let's say one of the guy wants to set up his own website and he's having his own business, but he don't want to buy expensive database things and set it up with
yeah,
Angular.
yeah,
Is
but again, that is back end. So this is just Angular, right? This is nothing to
yeah,
do
yes,
with
yeah,
back.
the overall knowledge I have, but I am just asking Salim, did any of the
Yeah,
third
yeah,
party
yeah. So
free tool?
if you want cheap storage solutions, like you don't want to set up your own SQL server, you don't want to set up your own backend, like using
Yeah.
something heavy like Java or .NET, you can
Yeah.
use Google Firebase. You will get
Mhm.
a login.
Mhm.
You can get login, because there is no point if you store everything on client data, because even if it's company and
Yeah.
it wants at least say a quotation request, it has to go somewhere, right? It
Yeah.
has to go to some backend. So you can use Google Firebase free. You will get authentication services. Sorry. See, you can get free authentication services. You'll get real-time database for free storing. I think they use NoSQL.
Oh,
Uh, yeah, and building up these services are very, very easy. Like you can see, you have storage facilities. So yes, Angular application you can spin up and like get a full-fledged website with
oh,
authentication, with storage using something like Firebase. And there are other companies which give similar functions. I forgot one name. One is very famous. I don't remember
Amazon?
that. No, not Amazon. Let me just do one quick Firebase versus this mobile developers they use. Yeah, I think it's
No.
Flutter. Mobile developers they use very much to get a backend. Flutter APIs or something like that. Never used it, but have heard quite a lot.
That is also free.
This Flutter, I don't know.
Okay.
I have heard lots of things about this from the mobile application developers because they need something very easy and quick without building the whole infrastructure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Salim, I have a question about the unit testing. I
Mm.
heard that with Angular we can do unit testing, like for example in Java we use JUnit for testing
Yes.
our classes. Is there any way to test that way?
There are, and I think it's built in. If you see, whenever we create a component, we have this spec.ts. So here we have the testing, and then if you go to package.json, we have Jasmine, and yeah, we have Jasmine for testing. But to be honest, I have never written unit testing for Angular application. I use like you guys use JUnit. I use XUnit for .NET API. When coming to testing, my experience has mostly been on the backend side. I also use Postman to test my API so that they are sending the right data. But I I won't be able to like show you how Jasmine works. But yeah,
There's something else
Jasmine.
called E2E, I believe. I saw a different Angular video where they were talking about E2E, which is for I'm certainly not an expert. I just remember seeing it in a video, right? But I believe there's something called E2E that can be built in unit testing for Angular as well.
Yeah, I've also seen that, and like you, I've also seen that unit testing because in real scenario from my experience, what happened in my project was we spent a lot of time building unit test and integration test on our APIs. So we felt quite comfortable that our applications in terms of unit test and all and continuous deployment and all, it was okay. And so never actually implemented unit testing on Angular, the front end side. So that was from like our decision at the time when we worked on the projects.
So Salim, how do you verify the flow is working as expected on the UI side? Do you use any other means how should we?
Deepak, in Aspect BC, I looked at the reference application and I have conversation with Wade and Adi also. They want us to use Karma and Jest framework for unit testing. So that's how we will be doing. They have some examples. Hopefully, we can follow the examples that they have set out in the reference side.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense because without Angular test, how we understand how we confirm the flow workflow, right? Logically.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
just in turn relies on Jasmine. I'm not sure, but the convention is much similar to what he was showing here. That is
Okay.
spec.ts, and you write these it functions and describe functions.
Got it. Thank you.
So what we have done in the past is either manual testing will, if you test it manually, of course you get all the flows and you can verify the flows. The the screen flow, data flow, navigation, everything. The second thing we have also done in the past is used Selenium. So Selenium, you can do it in, I believe, in multiple ways. One is you just write your scripts, or you can put Selenium in Selenium, or there's some one other tool where you put the whole tool on a record type of method. So as you type in the user ID password, as you navigate, it keeps recording everything, and then it'll play back for you.
That is Selenium IDE.
Yeah, Selenium. So you can do some automated testing that way and make sure you have a good coverage on all the screens, flows, and but some of the things, like for the labels getting cut off, right? Labels not aligning with the text box. Some of those things can only be, visually caught.
Okay. The
So
reason
do
I'm
you have
asking some.
go ahead.
Go ahead, Satya.
So do you have a good success using the Selenium for testing Angular application?
You are asking me. Let me
Yeah, yeah,
think.
yeah.
Let me think. I believe yes. There's one application at least I know of that we did in which we used Selenium. So one
Hmm.
example could be, let's say I want to see how my API behaves if 50 people logged in.
Okay.
So things like that you can certainly write script for and invoke browser and same tabs, multiple browsers, multiple screens, and run your script. And then
Okay.
watch your API and see how things are behaving over there.
Okay, because I heard like another automated tester saying like Selenium doesn't act very well with Angular application. That's why I was little bit surprised by the comment. Yeah, thank you. And
Yeah, I
how
believe
about
our development team did do that. Okay, I believe we did that.
okay. And when you did that, did you guys use the real REST APIs going back to the REST backend, or is it a marked API calls?
No, actual application. So deployed the application, then ran the test.
Okay, okay. And do you know like anybody attempted to do using doing a load testing using load runner or something like that?
No, that we didn't. So the only load testing we did is from the functional side.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
So, Samir, Selenium is what you mentioned is the load testing, performance testing, I believe. And what I'm talking about is the CI/CD, right? Whenever I made some changes, code change, I commit, immediately deploys. So I want this automated test to cover all my aspect, and I'm not breaking anything else. That's why I was looking for.
Yeah, I'm a bit confused. Okay, so first of all, Selenium is for UI.
Yeah, you
Correct.
can
Yeah.
do functional testing, not just load testing. Functional testing you can do.
Yeah, UI. And second of all, say taking example of JUnit. Okay, so similarly like XUnit or NUnit in my case, exactly like you said, CI/CD. Someone checks in whether something broke or not. Most of the time, what we test is business logics, right? Our classes, the methods we are calling, somebody went and changed it, and that goes break in another place, right? And I believe in front end, most of the time, like you can see here, we are checking whether the title text is like this or not. I am not sure how much we can test uh, complex functionality here, but again, mm, like I'm not getting the thing where oh, like unit testing will really help us in the front end to that extent where it helps us in our like APIs or something like that.
Okay. Okay. Makes sense. Yeah.
Means you're
So
understanding. I'm also thinking it like how can yeah.
Deepak, for us, the path is set by FPAC-BC already, so we have to follow the same standards while developing the
sure.
unit testing.
Okay. So what is the role of a tester here? Means I heard in other discussion that developer is going to be tester and there won't be manual testers. Means is that the right statement to make?
I don't think that it is the right forum to discuss that. Maybe we can.
Oh,
Yeah, it's open. Like different people may have different opinions, but at the end, like if the enterprise architect is dictating something, we might have to follow the same.
Not only that, but
got
different applications could have different answers to that question.
Yeah.
interesting. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So any other question? If not, we can conclude this call. I've also recorded the call. I'll send you the recording.
I have one more question. Like we talked about activated route and route guard. Maybe they're for different purpose. It hasn't yet synced into my mind. Route guard definitely it helps preventing navigations. And activated route, how does it play a role in building the applications?
So you can see here we have the same route add employee and add employee where we are sending query string parameter ID here.
Okay.
To catch the value of this ID, what we need to do is we have to inject activated route.
Oh,
Activated
okay.
route.
I see.
Yeah, and we have to use param map, that is parameter mapping property, and then we need to subscribe to it and then pass a variable to arrow function, and there we will use the get function to get our query string parameter.
But route also has a snapshot.
Yeah.
So is
Route
it
also has.
is it similar functionality from route as well?
Yeah, both of them will give you this thing, value of the query string. But I use this one activated route.
Okay, so you can choose to use either one. It's just up to you.
Yeah, I have always used activated route to get query string. Like that has become the second nature to me. Whenever I
Okay.
need to work with query string, I'll go with activated route.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And are you guys going to share your contact information so that if we have any questions, we can send out emails or?
I will share my details with Srinivas, and then we can route it that way. Yeah?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Samir, can you stay once everybody leaves?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat your question, please?
Just stay on the line once everybody leaves.
Yeah, sure. I will.
Good. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thank you,
Thank,
everyone.
thank you, everyone.
Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank
Good session.
Okay.